Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Wednesday night live stream for Week 8 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour plus, I'll be answering any and all fantasy football related questions. If you guys have a question, whether you do type it in the live chat or send it in via super chat in order to claim priority, make sure you include your scoring format and all the potential context that will be needed in order to make my life that much easier in terms of answering those questions. So if it's a half PPR, full PPR, standard, 4-point versus 6-point per passing touchdown, a super flex league, and tight end premium, whatever that context is provided within your question, to be greatly appreciated. If it's just a straight question, I'm just going to assume that it's a kind of half PPR, just trying to kind of keep everything in the middle, whether you do play standard, full PPR. I'd just assume that it's a half PPR. Either way, earlier today, we did end up dropping our Week 8 wide receiver rankings. If you guys haven't checked that out, that is live on the channel. Again, we talk about my top 40 wide receivers, actually top 41 to be exact. And on top of it, we also did have an inclusion in regards to wide receiver rest of season strength of schedule in regards to the beginning of that episode. So if you haven't checked it out, be sure to do so. I appreciate it. Outside of that, let's get into answering some questions. I know that many of you have already sent in questions. I went and I found your extensions to your messages within the live chat already. So hopefully all of that context is already taken care of. I've kind of put it into a notepad of sorts because otherwise it all gets lost. I just saw that Thomas sent in a question. Let me just go ahead and put that in here as well. Okay, here we go. So in terms of questions, again, first and foremost, I guess before we even get into questions, well, actually somebody's going to ask eventually, but I'm sure you guys want to know my thoughts on that guy, DeAndre Hopkins. Earlier this morning, obviously at around 3 a.m., almost 4 a.m., the Adam Schefter report came out. I was awake, 3 a.m. PST, working on stuff, and immediately I saw it and I was like, all right, I got to post it on the Patreon, make sure everybody gets to it. But yeah, we'll talk about it as it progresses. I'm sure that somebody's going to ask about it, and once they do, I'll go into a little bit more finer detail. Okay, first question of the day was sent in from Katie, who says, I need some help. I'm currently 3-4 in my league, 12 teams. It's a half PPR scoring format. Start CJ Stroud or Tua Tagovailoa. Okay, first and foremost, between those two, going into this week, I'd probably lean towards playing CJ Stroud. I think the matchup against the Indianapolis Colts is an easy one, while I'd probably give it a week to see what Tua is capable of. I mean, they're going to be relatively closely ranked, but yes, I will have Stroud just slightly ahead of Tua in this circumstance. As for your next question, in terms of BTJ, Devontae Adams, McLaurin, JSN, let's see here. We have Bigsby, you have Kareem Hunt, Madison, Njoku, Kraft, and the Vikings defense. Any changes or waiver pickups? Look, in terms of the stability of your roster, BTJ, Devontae Adams, and McLaurin should be your wide receiver / flex for the remainder of the season. I don't know if this is a 3 starting wide receiver league or a potential just 2 wide receivers in one flex position, but those 3 should be implicated to start every single week as long as they're not injured or on a bye week. So I have no issue with those 3 receivers. I'd keep them on roster as is. Bigsby, Hunt, Madison is your biggest struggle. Obviously, Kareem Hunt will eventually disappear. If I was in your position, I would be trying to see what you can get in exchange for Pacheco right now before he returns in week 11. Or sorry, it's more like week 10 or 11. By that time, Hunt will potentially disappear, which and obviously you're going to need to have something to kind of fill in his absence. Perhaps going after Pacheco could be a path for you. Considering you have Njoku and Kraft, you could find a team that is absent of a tight end that they can trust in every single week, send that in their direction along with potentially, like a JSN or potentially like an Alexander Madison, Bigsby, and see what you can get in return. But that would be my initial kind of changes that I'd make. In terms of waiver pickups, it depends on what's purely available. In a 12-team league, half PPR, I'd assume that there's not much available, especially if you have 6 bench spots in that circumstance. But yeah, let's try to get Pacheco, and let's try to ship one of those tight ends, and potentially see if we can get something back in return that is not a tight end. Thank you. Moving on to a question that came in from Football is Life. Says, full PPR 10-team league. My team is Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Jordan Mason, Christian McCaffrey, Pollard, Amon-Ra, A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, D-Hop, Waddle, McMillan, and the GOAT, Bowers. Yeah, of course. Let's see here. Would you trade Pollard and D-Hop for David Montgomery? I don't mind the trade. Am I excited about it? I'm more indifferent more than anything. I think Pollard's overall value is going to be going in an opposite direction considering the quarterback situation for the Tennessee Titans. So the matter of just like not taking any risk on D-Hop and not, really seeing what he's made of or what he could be capable of within the offense is a little bit of the sketchy part. But I don't mind the stability that David Montgomery provides in this circumstance in order to just give you a boost at your running back position going forward. I have no issue with the trade. Thank you. Eric Sanchez sends in a question. Thank you, Eric. Eric says, my running backs are Walker, Brian Robinson Jr., Kareem Hunt, DeAndre Swift, Tank Bigsby, Jonathan Brooks. League mate of mine wants to send me Achane for Hunt and Swift. Should I do it? Okay, so considering Hunt is on your roster without Isaiah Pacheco, I would say that, again, by the time we get to week 10, 11, he will disappear, and his value will be sapped away in the direction of Isaiah Pacheco. Therefore, he is just a, I guess he's just a value play until then. So considering the volume of potential fantasy points I anticipate to see Achane produce in comparison to Swift, with the potential of just losing a little bit of running back depth for now in the form of Hunt, I'd be willing to take that trade. I'll take Achane for the rest of the season. Thank you. Angel Montero sends in a question. It's a two-part question, a lot of text. So let's see if we can go through this. It says, hey, Andrew, I'm currently 4-3, lost the game by 1, and the others due to injuries. Should I keep my team how it is or make any changes? I have Allen Daniels, Sam Darnold, because you said Bradford. I don't think you meant Bradford, by the way, because Sam Bradford hasn't played in the league for a while. So I'm going to assume you meant Sam Darnold and not Sam Bradford, okay? So Allen Daniels, Darnold, JT, Brian Robinson Jr., Achane, Brown and Brooks at running back. Okay, pretty stable group there. St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Cooper, Debo, Kraft, TJ Hawkinson, Aubrey, Jets defense / Chiefs in a full PPR 12-team league. 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 flex. Thanks, Andrew, and happy birthday. No problem. Thank you. Appreciate that. So as of right now, the way that I see your team, in a 1 quarterback situation, you do not need to have Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels on the same roster. Now, unfortunately for you, and even on top of that, Sam Darnold, okay? So you need to get rid of 2 of those quarterbacks, in my opinion. Now, if I was in your position, I'd be trading away Jaden Daniels. Obviously, he's dealing with an injury right now, so it may be a little bit more difficult to trade him in that circumstance, but I would try to keep Josh Allen rest of the season. I would trade away Jaden Daniels and try to bring back any sort of running back or wide receiver depth that can be an immediate starter within my lineup. I'm sure somebody in your league would be interested, and I'm sure I've told you in the past to make that kind of a trade, because I've told everybody, if you've got 2 stud starting quarterbacks, you don't want to keep them both unless you're playing in a super flex format. You should be shipping them away in order to get some compensation in return. Now, as for your running backs, JT, once healthy, fantastic. BRJ's looked great this year. Achane's fantastic. Chase Brown is great. Jonathan Brooks, to be determined. St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, I don't know if that's Amari Cooper or Cooper Kupp, but when you say Cooper, I'm going to assume that it's Amari, Debo, Kraft, TJ. I mean, look, I have no issues with tight ends. I have no issues with wide receiver. I have no issues at running back. It is literally just you have too much quarterback depth, and I'm going to try to utilize that in order to find a team in your league that has an abundance of either running back or wide receiver, and try to get somebody in return. Maybe if you need to send a Daniels plus an Amari Cooper and try to go for a top-tier wide receiver, that could be a path that you could potentially explore in the coming days here. Thank you very much, Angel. I appreciate it. Moving on to a question that comes in from Prohibit, who says, was offered Kupp for Montgomery. I got Brees / Bigsby / ETN and my other running backs as my other running backs. Okay. My wide receivers are currently Neighbors, Higgins, BTJ. Do I do the trade in a standard scoring league? Look, the way that I see it, if you trade away Montgomery for Kupp, your running back depth is shattered, because unfortunately, Bigsby / ETN has still not yet been established. Even though we just most recently saw on Sunday morning in London that Tank Bigsby was a machine against that run stop, the absent run stop defense of the New England Patriots, it does not mean that once ETN returns, Bigsby isn't going to have a lesser role, because honestly, there is a possibility of that existing. Until we can get an actual physical confirmation that Bigsby is the preferred back and is going to be the dominant force, it'd be very difficult for me in this position, considering your current wide receiver depth, to be giving away in a Montgomery-esque player for Cooper Kupp if you don't have another running back that you can, trustfully start every single week in and win out for the remainder of the season. So as of right now, considering your circumstance, I would keep Montgomery, and I'd have to pass on the specific trade. Now, if somebody wants to take Bigsby and ETN off your hands for a specific singular player, then sure. But until then, I think you should keep the running back depth as is. Nicest Nick sends in a question, says Olave or Marvin Harrison rest of season? That's a really difficult question to answer. Based on the way that they've utilized Marvin Harrison, I'm going to assume that once, in fact, we get a healthy Derek Carr back, Chris Olave will be a little bit more valuable. Now, again, there's always a possibility that the Arizona Cardinals readjust and potentially self-scout and determine, okay, this is the way that we're going to utilize Marvin Harrison going into the future. We're going to get him more opportunities here and there, and they do so. But again, that is all speculatory. We haven't seen them actually execute that. Therefore, Olave would be the most valuable prospect between the two once Carr returns. Thomas Dabney sends in a question. Thomas, I found it in the chat already from earlier. Thomas says, my updated starters are Josh Allen, Devon Achane, Joe Mixon, Malik Neighbors, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, Cooper Kupp, Josh Jacobs, Kaimi Fairbairn, and the Los Angeles Chargers defense. I have on my bench Jordan Love, Chuba Hubbard, Harrison Jr., Olave, Garrett Wilson, Hawkinson on the IR. Any changes to make? Do I drop DJ? Do you drop DJ? Who the heck is DJ? Like Deontay Johnson? Because you didn't mention having Deontay Johnson on this team. So, not exactly sure what you mean. Do you need to drop DJ? No. Do you need to make any moves? No. Do I change anything? Perhaps you trade one of your top two quarterbacks. Again, you don't need to have Josh Allen and Jordan Love on the same team, unless you are anticipating and are omega scared of injuries. If you are and you want to just play it safe, I understand it. But I do believe that, both those quarterbacks should be starting every week in your league, and I'm sure somebody would be able to help compensate you for that in exchange for, like, you send away Love and Hubbard and you get a top-tier running back in return, something of that extent. Or maybe you send away Love and Garrett Wilson and you get a wide receiver in return. Something like that could probably be in the mix. It's just a matter of how receptive teams are in your league to trying to get Jordan Love and how interested they are in that circumstance, which I'm sure you've maybe, looked at their roster to kind of determine that. But as of right now, I don't think there's any changes to make. In terms of dropping like Deontay Johnson, I don't think you do so. Again, Andy Dalton was in a car accident yesterday. Obviously, there's a reason why he's not playing this week. That's mainly because of that. So once he gets healthy, I would assume that he takes over the job again, because this week, Bryce Young is going to get destroyed. I'm sorry. Listen, I really do hope that Bryce Young in the future finds an organization that can surround him with the talent that he requires and gives him an offensive coach that really can elevate his overall game. Unfortunately, he was not capable of accomplishing that in Carolina. But going against the Denver Broncos defense, I mean, look what they did to the rookie quarterback last week. I'd like to imagine with the return of Patrick Surtain, less zone coverage, more man coverage, they're really going to turn it up against them. And it's not going to be a pretty sight to see. So for right now, DJ's not a great play this week, but for the future, once, Andy Dalton does return, he'll be fine. Thank you. Aaron Yeager sends in a question. Aaron says, in a full PPR flex, Najee, Waddle, or Reed? Thank you. In a full PPR, typically I'm going to lean towards playing those wide receivers. As for Najee Harris, again, back-to-back weeks of over 100 rushing yards and a touchdown, incredible numbers. Obviously, late in that game, scored that touchdown against the Giants. You would assume he scores, but there's no guarantee in that circumstance. So, as of right now, between those three, I'd probably lean towards playing Jaden Reed. Thank you. B-Dub sends in a question, says Garrett Wilson or Chubb for Kenneth Walker. Sorry, Garrett Wilson and Chubb for Kenneth Walker. I got offered this. Yeah, if someone wants to give you Kenneth Walker, if you're going to get the Kenneth Walker side of that deal, I would accept it. If you're getting the other side, as in Garrett Wilson or Nick Chubb, I'm not interested in Garrett Wilson or Nick Chubb in exchange for Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker is the most valuable piece in that entire trade. That's the side that you want to be on, in which you are getting him this season, or keeping him, of course. Thank you. Moving on, we had a question that came in from No Love Matt, who says, should I start BTJ or Waddle? I'm already playing Mason, Jacobs, Swift, and Dobbins. I need one more wide receiver too in a full PPR 10-team league. Okay, so obviously your running backs are set. Like, they should be able to clean house this week. As for BTJ or Waddle, I prefer to play Waddle. BTJ is a great player. I just don't like that matchup against the Green Bay Packers secondary. If Jair Alexander is at a full capacity, they have really been a problem for opposing wide receivers as of the last couple weeks since Jair Alexander has returned from his injury. Obviously, he missed that game against the if I'm not mistaken, the Minnesota Vikings. And then after that game has just been on a tear. So as of late, not really loving the idea of BTJ. I'm still going to play him in many of circumstances because, again, he is an elite player and he's demonstrated that when given ample opportunity, which again is going to be a negative game script this week, he should be solid. But if I'm picking the preference of the two, I'll take Waddle. Thank you. Justice Reborn sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, I need one flex out of Addison, Wando Robinson, Cade Otton, and or Ricky Pearsall. Honestly, between the bunch, I think I actually played Cade Otton. So Ricky Pearsall is going to require a couple things. First and foremost, he's going to require that Deebo Samuel's inactive. At that point, I would then consider him as the most valuable prospect of the bunch. But until then, it would be Cade Otton. Because again, he's taking on the Atlanta Falcons. This is expected to be a negative game script in which they're throwing for majority of that second half in trying, to keep up with the Atlanta Falcons offense. So for right now, I lean towards Otton until we get some information or clarity regarding Deebo Samuel's status, George Kittle, and Juwan Jennings, which again, all three of them could eventually or potentially end up missing this week due to their injuries. So if multiple of those options for 49ers are gone, Pearsall's in the lineup for me. Thank you. Joel Garza sends in a question, says, love or Lamar this week in a full PPR? That is a really good question. I have a hard time sitting Lamar Jackson in any circumstance. So here's the issue. Lamar Jackson, even though we are anticipating that they're going to completely steamroll this Cleveland Browns team, okay, which they should. They're definitely capable of accomplishing that. They should be able to steamroll them. When I look at the points that Lamar has put up, 34, 18.9, 33, 23, 26, 16, and 25, right? So in the games in which they have blown out opposing teams, most recently, we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys game where he scored 26 fantasy points, okay? Then additionally, they blew out the Buffalo Bills. He put up 23.6 fantasy points. And then most recently, in this most recent blowout, again, prior to the fourth quarter heroics of a couple receiving touchdowns for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were up 3 scores at one point, 34 fantasy points. So even in games that we expect them to blow out, if his worst case scenario is that he puts up 19 fantasy points, I'm going to be perfectly fine having started Lamar Jackson. I just think that the upside is just too high for me to pass up on that idea, considering what he has demonstrated. I understand that Love has quite literally the best matchup at the quarterback position, and they do not like to run the ball. So it could be a day where Jordan Love throws 4 passing touchdowns, but it could also be a day that Lamar does the same thing and has an additional 50 rushing yards, which is always the interesting aspect and why we prefer Lamar in this scenario. Thank you, Joel Garza. Thank you. Bruce Cowdery sends in a question. Says, please rank. In a full PPR, flex tourney, we have Bateman, McLeod, we have McMillan, and or Tillman. Okay, so if we're ranking them for rest of season or this week, I'm not exactly sure what exactly you meant, but I think that the rankings are probably going to see relatively similar. As of right now, for rest of season or even this week, McMillan's got to be 1 because of the absence of Godwin for the rest of the season and the absence of Evans until week 12, at very least week 12. And then it's Bateman 2nd, and then it's between McLeod and Tillman. McLeod is not going to have touchdown upside. With Winston in the lineup, it's going to be a gunslinger offense to the extent to where Tillman could be a value. So I probably just go McMillan, Bateman, Tillman, and McLeod in that order. This week, rest of the season, doesn't matter. Thank you. Zeke Rodriguez sends in a question. Says, question is in the chat. Thank you, Zeke. Let me go ahead and see if I can find that right now. All right. Zeke Rodriguez, where art thou? Zeke, there's nothing in the live chat as of yet. If you could do me a favor and re-type it in, or send it again in the live chat, that'd be greatly appreciated, because again, by the time you had sent it, it has already been updated as of the chat. So the chat has already kind of wiped it away up the list, and it's gone out of my sight. Thank you. Jonathan Lee sends in a question. Says, in a 12-man full PPR, I'm currently 2-5, just broke a 5-loss streak. Wow. Hurts, Achane, Gibbs, AJ Brown, Amari Cooper, Kincaid, Chase Brown, Koo, Broncos, Worthy, Jennings. Wow, okay, good. Hunter, Pearsall, Tolbert, Wright. Honestly, you're in a good spot. With Achane getting Tua back, with Gibbs getting a little bit of an ascension, with AJ Brown at a full capacity, Amari Cooper will see himself an expansion within the offense. Chase Brown has looked great. The Broncos defense. There's nothing you really need to move. If anything, you even get potentially even more upside going forward if Jennings really does become an integrated part of that offense and really becomes a relevant option every week, which he certainly is capable of accomplishing. Same thing with Pearsall. They're both associated with a great offense that, again, hasn't been able to run the ball as effectively as they've wanted to. So at this point, yeah, I think you've got a really strong team. Just hold on to it tight, and let's ride it out here. Obviously, Kincaid is the weakest, part of your team, considering, Younghoe Koo is scoring 15 points per game for you, which is ridiculous. He's literally more valuable than your starting running backs. What a year for fantasy. But yeah, as of right now, Kincaid's the only issue. Am I making any moves? I'd maybe hit the waiver wire and see if you could potentially grab somebody that could kind of fill in. But outside of that, really, I don't think you're making anything of massive change, Jonathan. Thank you. All right, let's see if Zeke Rodriguez typed in the chat. Hopefully. All right, there you go, Zeke. Thank you. Zeke says, in a full PPR, trade offer Jordan Mason, Darnell Mooney, and Bucky Irving for Amari Cooper, Raheem Mostert, and Nico Collins. My running backs are Hall, Cook, David Montgomery, Braylon Allen, and Ray Davis. My wide receivers are London, McLaurin, BTJ, and Worthy. I'm 7-0 in this league. So you'd be trading away Mason, which again will eventually disappear, in exchange for Raheem Mostert, which is long-term, Amari Cooper. Yeah, I'll take the Amari Cooper, Raheem Mostert, and Nico Collins side of that deal in an instant. In a heartbeat, I would auto-accept that. So if you're, again, with a 7-0 record, you can wait for these players to return. Look, you could literally lose. I'm not even joking. You could lose out and still make the playoffs in your league. You need 7 to 8 wins in a 12-team league to make the playoffs. Now, that 7 wins is still going to require that you have the highest scoring points in, or a higher or top like 6 in overall points for. 8 wins pretty much guarantees it. So really, you're in such a locked-in position that, yes, I would take the Amari Cooper, Nico Collins, Raheem Mostert side of that deal almost instantaneously. As soon as it was sent to you, take that. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from Romeo, who says, top 10 kickers and defenses for week 8. You know what? That's a fantastic question, Romeo. I haven't even begun doing kicker and defense rankings. Again, usually I don't take care of that until later tonight when I complete tight end, quarterback, kicker, and defensive rankings, because again, I prepare all of that for tomorrow's Patreon outflow. So I couldn't even tell you what I have as like my top 12 kickers. I have no clue. I literally haven't done any research. I don't know what the weather looks like. I don't know who's playing outdoors. I don't know what the overall spreads are for all, these games. I don't know who has the highest potential range for kicks, all this kind of stuff. There's many of metrics that I look at. There's like, I'd say maybe 5 to 7 that I look at for kickers in terms of determining that. I haven't looked at any of it. So I couldn't even tell you. I appreciate the question. I can't even tell you defenses yet either. Even though I know for a fact I'm starting the Denver Broncos defense, I'm starting the Chiefs defense, the Detroit Lions defense. We're firing all those up against those bum offenses. I couldn't even tell you the order in which I'd go about it. So as of right now, to be determined. We'll talk about it tomorrow night after the game. Again, tomorrow night's game, Minnesota versus the LA Rams defense. You're not playing the Rams defense, but if you do have the Vikings defense, you start them every single week for the remainder of the season. So tomorrow night, Romeo, if you want to swing on by after the game, I'll have those rankings available for you, and I can go ahead and just immediately rip them off. If you can't show up tomorrow night, I'm just going to mention it at the beginning of tomorrow's live stream anyway, so you can maybe swoop in later on in the weekend and kind of rewind back to that section at the beginning of the video and watch it so that it'll be answered. Thank you, Romeo. Apologies. Anonymous sends in a question. Says, should this be vetoed? Christian McCaffrey / Parkinson for Tank Bigsby and Kraft. Yeah. I mean, should it be vetoed? No. Would I veto it? Look, okay, here's the thing. Hear me out, okay? In all the leagues that I play in, if you have 2 consenting adults that both understand the value of their players, I will never decline a trade unless I have actual evidence that it is in fact collusion. I will never decline a trade. The reason why is because there's always a possibility that this trade occurs and Christian McCaffrey never comes back, and that guy just fleeced him of Tank Bigsby, and guess what? Maybe ETN never comes back, and Tank Bigsby is a top 10 running back for the rest of the season, and you stopped him from making that trade, and guess what? Tank Bigsby would have won him the league. That's why I don't veto trades. Now, unless you have some sort of confirmed evidence that there is some collusionary factors going on, for example, the Christian McCaffrey team doesn't even have ETN on it, or there's a potential which this Christian McCaffrey team is 0-7, and they're just trying to sell their pieces. I don't know. At this point, it's tough to say. I would need more context regarding it, but I usually just never decline any trades. Or the reason why I don't mainly is because the people that I play with, they're all relatively well kind of versed in fantasy and trades and values. So really, I don't even doubt the kind of concepts or potential path they want to go about. As for your league mates, I guess that's a call on you. It doesn't look great, but at the same time, I wouldn't decline it because Parkinson will eventually lose all value. So it's pretty much a Christian McCaffrey for Bigsby and Kraft trade. Kraft has scored a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games. Bigsby could be him. You never know. Thank you. Denon sends in a question, says, start Sam Darnold or Kyler Murray. Denon, you're going to get the rankings tomorrow via Patreon, but as of right now, if I had to tell you off the top of my head, if it's me, I probably play Sam Darnold tomorrow. Yeah, 4-point or 6-point per passing touchdown, it doesn't matter. I think I play Sam Darnold. Kyler's very sketchy to play. If he doesn't have a massive rushing yard total and or a rushing touchdown, it becomes very difficult to play him considering the lack of consistency from the passing game of that offense. Darren Hill sends in a question. Thank you, Darren. Darren says, putting behind us that no matter who I drop for sucking, they'll go off immediately. Do I drop downs for Demario Douglas? Okay, that is hilarious. By the way, Darren, all of us in the chat, okay, there's about 300 of us in here. We all thank you for your sacrifice, okay? And there's many more of us out there that as soon as you drop these players, they're in our lineups and they go off, and we thank you for your sacrifice in doing so. I'm sure that somebody this last week dropped Mark Andrews, and they did, and it was enough of good juju that it kind of, tilted the direction of Mark Andrews in the positive end, in which he scores 2 touchdowns. So a lot of sacrifices were made. We appreciate that, Darren. In this circumstance, yes, I would drop Downs until otherwise noted that Flacco is starting. Until Flacco is starting, Downs is not an option that we can rely upon at all. Thank you. Moving on to Chris R., who says, starting Darnold, Achane, Javonte Williams, George Pickens, Amon-Ra, Tucker Kraft, Neighbors, and Hubbard. Okay, really good team. My bench consists of Jaden Daniels, Etienne, Bigsby, Dobbs, and Laporta. Suggestions? Honestly, I don't make any suggestions. I think you've got it right on the, you've hit the nail right on the head. You've crit. So that's a great team, and let's hope for the best. Again, you've got really good matchups as well. So I'm expecting big things from the lineup this weekend. The only thing that I would ever consider, actually, now that I'm looking at it, now that we know that Bryce Young is starting at quarterback, Chris, I think you might have to replace Hubbard with for Romeo Dobbs. I think I'm going to have to recalibrate my overall rankings for Hubbard, and I'm going to have to take into account that, again, the offense is not going to be able to move the ball, so Hubbard is going to be a lesser option probably, at the point to where I probably end up playing Romeo Dobbs in the flex instead of him. So that's actually the only change that I'd make now that I look at it, Chris. Thank you. Adam Amar sends in a question, says, can you explain why DK, Taylor, Ricky, or over JJ and B-Rob? Can you explain DK Metcalf, Jonathan Taylor, Ricky Pearsall over JJ and B-Rob? Can I explain it? I don't even know if I like that. Hold up. Okay, so JJ's better than DK. There's no question asked. Taylor's better than B-Rob. Ricky Pearsall's a toss-up. So really, it's just a matter of is Jonathan Taylor healthy? That's it. If Jonathan Taylor's healthy, I think there is an argument that can be made in terms of fantasy point production on a per week average that could favor the Jonathan Taylor side. Because again, if he's at a full healthy rate and if you're looking for a running back that's going to have themselves the potential of 16 to 20 points a game, which again, that's potential. It's not an automatic. He would potentially provide that. As for DK, again, he's a pretty valuable wide receiver to the extent to where, again, when he is on his consistent path, he's great. But when we look at the trade as a whole, considering, again, Jonathan Taylor, no guarantee he even plays this week. There's no guarantee of, a re-injury not happening. I'd rather just take the JJ and Brian Robinson side as of this current moment in time. As I sit in front of you right now, I look at the consistency that I have witnessed from Brian Robinson and JJ, and I'll just take that every week. I don't want to make any risks happen. The idea of Pearsall could be something that is very enticing, but at this point, unless you're super thin on your roster, I don't think you need to make a move of this capacity to where you have to kind of move your studs in exchange, for that compensation in return. I don't think it's necessary. But again, it's very much so contingent on DK knee, Taylor ankle, which again, both of them we have no clarity on, which is very much so concerning. Thank you. Pista488 says, is Brees for Jaden Reed and Achane a fair trade? I think it is, yes. When I say a fair trade, is I'll take the Jaden Reed and Achane side rest of the season. That's what I mean by it's a fair trade. For Brees Hall, yes, I'd make that trade. Thank you. Kid Wit Steez says trade Wilson, McLaurin for Hill and Keenan Allen. I think it depends, right? Because if you're gonna have to start Keenan Allen every week, it's a no-go. I'd rather start every week Wilson and McLaurin than Hill and Keenan Allen. I'm just not really interested in the idea of playing Keenan Allen rest of the season in this circumstance. So if you can tell me hey, Andrew, I've got a lot of depth. I've got also X, Y, or Z wide receiver that I could also throw into the mix alongside of Hill, and Keenan will never see my starting lineup unless I'm in a bye week. In that scenario, I'd be more inclined to potentially venture down this path. But again, that requires that you have a stud roster of wide receivers on board. Thank you. RJ says, hey, in a full PPR, start 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, RB1 flex. So I'm going to assume that's 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. I'm going to assume, but it wasn't indicated either way. Chase, as in Brown, wait, no, that's not Chase Brown. That's Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Cooper Kupp, Gibbs, Walker, Connor, Mason. Happy birthday. Thank you very much for the happy birthday wish. As for the overall roster for this weekend, as of right now, again, I think Jamar Chase and Cooper Kupp are your starting 1 and 2 wide receiver. I think that's clear in a way. As for your RB 1 and 2, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jordan Mason, and then your flex is going to be Walker. That's the way I go about it. So Chase, Kupp, Gibbs, Mason, and Walker. Unfortunately, Connor and Devontae Smith are on the bench this weekend. Thank you. Prel sends in a question. Thank you, Prel. Says Marvin Harrison, Chase Brown for DJ Moore and Mostert for I get DJ. No. I'm not interested in Mostert. Well, okay, here's the thing. If Mostert goes back to being the 2023 Mostert, that's an auto steal. But there's no guarantee of that. And I'd probably venture to say that it's not going to exist at the capacity at which it was last season. Therefore, I'd probably just rather have the Chase Brown side as of right now going forward. Yeah, if it wasn't Mostert and you had another running back that had a little bit more potential for value, I'd say yes. But there's so much inherent risk in that alone that giving away a player like Chase Brown hurts. Now, again, you could argue that Chase Brown, DJ Moore, those are the strongest pieces, and we're just trading Marvin Harrison and Mostert as like potential options for the future. I get it. In that circumstance, I could justify it maybe, but that's only in specific leagues depending on the kind of depth that you have on roster. So for right now, I'd probably keep, but I could justify it in my own mind to make the swap. But again, final word on it, I'd keep. Baba Booey sends in a question, says PPR trade Marvin Harrison, Jacobs, and Dobbs for Neighbors and Christian McCaffrey. Okay, let me see here. Marvin Harrison, Jacobs, and Dobbs. Okay, for Neighbors and Christian McCaffrey. Only if you have Jordan Mason. If you do not have Jordan Mason, I think that is a disastrous of a potential trade. Mainly because, again, understand it this way. If Christian McCaffrey returns, then re-injures himself, your season is done. Now, if you're okay with taking that risk, again, it's an implied risk that everybody has to take because injuries can happen at any given moment in which a player could be out for the remainder of the season. We've seen it multiple times this year, unfortunately. But if you're okay with the implied risk not having Mason on roster, then sure. Otherwise, I'd probably say no. But again, as of right now, it depends. I'm actually curious, Baba Booey, if you can, type in the live chat. I'm curious, do you have Jordan Mason? Because if you do, shoot, give me that. Let's go. If you don't have Jordan Mason and you're like, Andrew, this is an 8-team league. I've got XYZ running backs. Christian McCaffrey doesn't even need to start. He's literally a long-term play. Then okay, at that point. But I'm going to assume you're in some sort of 10-team, 12-team format. But you let me know. No Love Matt says, also I have Diggs. No Love Matt, let me scroll up and let me see your prior question as to what you're referring to. Should I start BTJ or Waddle? Oh, yeah. If you have Diggs, I'm starting Diggs over everybody. That's not even close at that point. Yeah, at that point, well, if Diggs is your wide receiver 1, then you're good. But then obviously you play Waddle aside of him. But if Diggs isn't if Diggs isn't already as your wide receiver 2 this week, it should be. Dragon Slayer says, offered Kupp for Mixon opinions. You got offered Kupp for your Mixon? I'd rather have Mixon rest of the season. Also have Hill and McLaurin. So is someone going to... Again, as of right now, I'd rather have Mixon. So whatever that means. Thank you. I'm not exactly sure which side you're getting in this circumstance. Alex Ongrass sends in the question. Says, my quarterbacks are Jaden Daniels and Baker Mayfield. I can only roster 2 quarterbacks. Pick up Nix, Geno, Tua, Darnold this week. Yeah, I think I would. Look for me at the Bengals game this week. All right, Alex, we'll see if we can find you in the massive crowd. So here's the circumstance. I don't think that Baker is going to be as relevant of an option going forward in the absence of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Oh, wow, what a surprise, Andrew. Who would have guessed? Exactly. But in this circumstance, going forward, if JD can be placed into the kind of IR spot and you can have JD sitting there while you have Baker and another quarterback, I'm picking up Darnold and playing him tomorrow night. If not, then you'd wait and you potentially drop Baker and pick up Tua, honestly. I think that would be the progression, or you even drop Baker and go after Geno, but I don't really want to play Geno this week because of DK's potential absence. Thank you. Basil Abdullah sends in a question, says, rank who to start. Reed, Kupp, Mason, Hunt, Kenneth Walker. Cool. Okay, so in this circumstance, the way that I'd go about it, let's say it's a half PPR. I'm not sure, you didn't mention your format, so we're going to just meet everyone in the middle. We'll say half PPR. Number 1 would be Mason. Number 2 would looking at it across the board in a half PPR, I'm actually playing all 3 running backs above those wide receivers. I'll take Mason, Hunt, and Kareem. I'll take Mason, Kareem Hunt, and Kenneth Walker as the 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 5 are Reed and Cup. That's the way that I go about it. Thank you. Evan Call sends in a question, says, how did you get into fantasy football? And when did you know when to start creating content or content creation? When did I start getting into fantasy football? I've been playing fantasy football since, 1 second here. I'll tell you the year. Drew Brees stats. The first year that Drew Brees threw for 5,000 yards was the first year I played fantasy. My team was auto-drafted because I didn't know any players. The first year he threw for 5,000 yards was in 2008. So that's the first year that I played fantasy football, okay? Just to put it into context. As to when I knew to make content, I literally, okay, backstory. This is it, quick and easy. The only reason I ever started making content is because I won my home league so badly. I literally lost 1 game the whole season in my own home league. I completely rinsed the league so hard that I was like, yo, I need to start making videos so that these guys can at least compete with me, because it's not even close. Like, it was an absolute destructive season. I'm trying to remember what year it was. I'm assuming, oh man. All I know is that I think it was Kareem Hunt's rookie season. Let me see here. Kareem Hunt's stats. So the year that I completely rinsed these guys was 2017. Yeah, Kareem Hunt went crazy. I had Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, and Le'Veon Bell that year. Absolutely monster team. I rinsed the league the next year. I graduated college. I was like, listen, maybe I should start making videos. And then all of a sudden, people started watching. And I was like, wow, more people are watching than I expected. I had my 9-to-5 job. I kept it going. Eventually got to a point where, the efforts that I needed to put into the channel were far greater than being able to just go to a 9-to-5 and come home and just throw out a video with no, preparation. And eventually, y'all kept supporting, and this became the full-time gig. The thing about content creation, purely, it's just a matter of effort, especially what I do. It's just a matter of effort. Anybody could do what I do, right? How much effort, how much time are you willing to put into the product to make it the best? How much time and effort are you willing to put in to be as accurate as possible? No stone unturned. If you have the full-fledged effort, anybody can do what I do. Anybody. It's just not there's not as many people in the world that want it as much as I do. And I guarantee you will not find very many people. You'll find a handful of people that want it more than I do. And there's a reason why I sit as, where I sit currently, having done this since 2018. Right? It's been a while now. We've been here for quite a while. But yeah, thank you for the question, Evan. Let's see here. We can go more into that kind of subject in greater detail once I catch up to some of these other questions. What I actually wanted to do, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Okay, let me continue answering some of these questions. Henry sends in a question. Thank you, Henry. All right, Henry says the following. He says, should I drop Juju for McMillan? Should I drop Juju for McMillan? If you can't put him on your IR, I'd venture to say it's not terrible. I think it's an okay swap because I don't know what the status of Juju is. Like, he may miss another week and then another week. And at that point, you're like, man, I could have had McMillan this whole time. So yeah, let's take the gamble on McMillan. I mean, it's not really much of a gamble, considering I don't expect them to be like starters on your team. You said you lost Collins, Kupp, Rice, and DK so far. Pick up Juju after Rice, and then he went down. Currently have JSN, Dobbs, and Pearsall. Yeah, I think I'd pick up McMillan and just kind of roll with this new Avengers that you have assembled and just see that if, one or two of them could be relevant going forward, and then at that point, just ride with them. All right, let's see here. Meza sends in a question. Says, hi, Andrew. I'm currently 4-3 with Richardson. Picked up Tua, but Cousins is available. Okay, great. Also, was offered Love for McBride, but don't have other tight end option. Yeah, so as of right now, I would stick with the idea of dropping Richardson and picking up Kirk Cousins and rolling with Tua and Kirk Cousins rest of season. Additionally, I would keep McBride because if you don't have an alternative option to pivot to, it's not worth making that trade and then just killing your tight end depth, which again is relatively needed going forward. Thank you. Max sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, trade Hunt or Garrett Wilson for Lamb. Sorry, Hunt and Garrett Wilson for Lamb. I would take the deal. If I could get Lamb in a PPR for Garrett Wilson and Kareem Hunt, and I do not have Pacheco, I'm sending away Hunt and Garrett Wilson immediately. Thank you. Emil sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, 2 flex, Mason, Montgomery, Pickens, Debo, BRJ. Okay, there's a lot of great options here, like really a lot. But of the available, it's Pickens and it's Mason. Those are the two that I'm starting very happily within this overall circumstance, Emil. King Alec sends in a question, says, hi, Andrew, in a full PPR must win. I need one running back and one flex. We have Najee Harris, risky with Warren. I don't think it's risky, honestly. Next, you have Chase Brown, you have Jordan Addison, you have McMillan, and Marvin Harrison. Cool. So I think your riskiest overall plays purely are going to be Addison, McMillan, and Marvin Harrison, right? Because again, they don't get enough opportunity, or there isn't a guarantee for opportunity to the extent to where I can, with a strong fist, say, yes, this is the player, that's what we're going with. So for right now, I'm leaning in the direction of just rolling with Najee Harris and Chase Brown within the given week as your RB and your flex. Thank you, King. Rogo says, how's it going, Andrew? It's going great. Thank you. Got a few questions. I'm smacked. How do I move? Do nothing, question mark. Do I drop / trade? What's the rest of season look like? Rosters in the live chat. Okay, Rogo. So I'm going to go ahead, Rogo, because I know you've been around the channel for a while. I'm going to say retype the question in the chat because there's a likelihood that it's not in there when I go to check right now. So make sure you get to that. Thank you. All right, moving on. We had a question that came in from It's Kafka who says, what's your expected fantasy point average for Hopkins? If we're lucky, legitimately, if we're lucky. In a half PPR, 9. If we're lucky. I mean, look, here's the thing. Hear me out. Patrick Mahomes is not playing good football. Okay? He's not playing good football. Even with Rashee Rice there, he was not playing good football. I don't think that this is going to like completely flip around the offense. It could. You never know. But it's really just a matter of what does DeAndre Hopkins look like? Is he the DeAndre Hopkins of old? Because I haven't watched much DeAndre Hopkins film this year because I don't rank him ever. So I don't need to actually watch him because I know he's not going to produce anything in Tennessee. Now I might have to go and take a look at DeAndre Hopkins' film of the most recent games he's played and kind of see, does he still have some left in the tank? And at that point, I'll have a better indication as to what exactly he is going to be able to produce on a per average basis. And it's also going to be very much so dependent on how often they want to utilize him. In the absence of all these other receivers, Rice, Juju now injured, Hollywood Brown, really, there's a potential in which he could get himself the vast majority of the overall wide receiver targets within the offense. As for how many that is, time will tell. And as to whether or not he's able to, make do with like 7-8 targets a game and how much capabilities he has in those circumstances, we'll have to wait and see. But for right now, I'm going to just say like 9, maybe 10 if we're lucky, just to be safe. And maybe we can get upside. We'll see. All right, so let me go ahead and let me travel back to the live chat really quickly. Let's see, did Rogo just typed it back in. Okay, cool. So Rogo said the following. He says, in a standard half PPR, CJ Stroud, Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, Gibbs, dyslexia, Mason, Kincaid, Hunt, Seibert, Denver defense. We have Baker on the bench. We have Swift. We have Montgomery. We have Cooper. We have Devontae Smith. Listen, man, you have so many good players. Honestly, what you need to do is get a more consistent quarterback than CJ Stroud because Baker's not going to be it for a while now. And CJ Stroud, I mean, I guess in some matchups can be great, but thus far, I mean, he's had some really tough games recently. As for the running back depth you have on roster, I think I want to keep it, especially considering, again, Mason and Hunt are eventually going to disappear, and it does not seem like you have Pacheco or McCaffrey on roster. Those could be guys that you can go after theoretically and utilize some of that depth you have on your bench in order to reclaim them. Sending away a Chubb for a Pacheco doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility. Sending away a 2-for-1 in which you can potentially get Christian McCaffrey in return is also another move that I'd be very much so, enticed by. Now, other than that, you don't have to make a move. You can keep them until they disappear, and once they do, Swift and Montgomery will fill in accordingly. And then outside of that, in terms of wide receiver depth, considering you have Cooper, Devontae Smith, to back up Diggs and Higgins. Again, Diggs will take a little bit of a step back when we do see Nico Collins return, but it's not going to be that big to where, honestly, you could very easily take this depth, considering you're not playing them every single week. And, well, actually, Hunt will eventually disappear. So the way that I see it as of right now, I'm probably looking for like Christian McCaffrey, Pacheco trades. And if you can use some of that running back depth or wide receiver depth to ensure that, I don't think it's a problem. Otherwise, you leave it as is because you've got as strong of a roster that I could potentially think about constructing in this circumstance outside of quarterback. That is the biggest issue, which again, you might be able to move some pieces around to get a quarterback that's a little bit more stable as of right now. Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead. Let me get back into the super chats real quick. So we had that. We took a Kafka. Okay, Frank H sends in a question. Says, Uncle wants to upgrade RB. My target is locked in on Tyreek/Neighbors. Who should I trade him? Bijan, Achane, Brian Robinson, Bigsby plus AJB, BTJ, Collins, Waddle, Olave. Thanks. Okay, so you can go about this many of different ways. I'm going to assume that if you're going to, so I'm going to assume, yes, they want a running back, but they might also need or require some wide receiver depth alongside of it. So if I'm in your position, I'm looking at Brian Robinson plus Olave for one of those wide receivers. That's what I'm looking for. If they want to go ahead and give me Tyreek Hill, I mean, honestly, I think Neighbors is more of the potential option that you can confirm. Like giving away Olave and Brian Robinson will probably get you Neighbors. Outside of that scenario, in order to get Tyreek Hill, I would assume you're probably going to have to give away, like, at this point, maybe Brian Robinson and BTJ or Brian Robinson and Waddle, which again, at that point, it's like, if you're going to start Bijan, Achane, AJ Brown, let's say BTJ and Tyreek Hill every week, that seems like a roster that can go to the chip. So I don't mind giving it away considering the vast volume of depth you have. So even in a scenario where you're like, all right, I got to give you BTJ and Waddle for Tyreek Hill, I'll take it because at least I'm getting that 20 points per game in roster. And if you're playing in a start 7 league where it's 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex, you can't start all these guys anyway. So you might as well just take advantage of that depth, get a player that's already passed his bye week and has his quarterback of the future back and healthy and ready to go. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking to probably, Brian Robinson, Olave for, a Neighbors or a Brian Robinson / either BTJ Waddle for Tyreek. It just depends on what they want in return. Again, once you have AJB Collins alongside of Tyreek Neighbors, by the time you get to week, 10, dude, this team's going to be unstoppable. Pipe Down sends it a question. It says, Mahomes 6 point per passing touch, Mahomes 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, still 6-0 in the league. Doomed ? Just wait till they get to the playoffs. If Joey B is in the playoffs, I'm telling you, if Joey B is in the playoffs, this is the year that they could literally fall apart. Because offensively, you cannot win every game hoping that your defense can lock down everyone. Their defense has been elite. It has been unstoppable. But here's the issue. Like, Mahomes has not looked great. But again, I mean, he's got guys like Justin Watson running routes out there. Like, what are we doing? I get it. They don't want to pay for a wide receiver. The wide receiver market requires you spend $30 million for a stud. I get it. But they have to actually consider doing it. Like, at this point, let Kelsey retire and let's bring in an actual wide receiver one. Because at this point, like Noah Gray, their backup tight end, is doing just as much damage based on how the scheme has functioned. Jeff sends in a question, says, in a full PPR stack, pick one. Caleb Williams, DJ Stroud. Okay, so Caleb Williams / DJ Moore or Stroud / Mixon, Tua / Achane or Stroud / Diggs. Okay, so I have to pick one of these stacks for this weekend, I'm assuming. If it's me, I'm stacking either Stroud Mixon or Tua Achane. Mainly because I can guarantee the value out of those backs. I'll probably take Stroud Mixon as of right now as the best stack of the bunch. Mainly because, again, Mixon, I'm guaranteeing like 25 points this week based on what he's done as of late. National Champ Rush says Ferguson or Njoku this weekend and rest of the season. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit trickier, right? Because a lot of the overall Njoku targets and receptions were made without Jameis Winston in the lineup. But the offense is predicated on getting Njoku the ball, which against Baltimore, a lot of tight ends, all tight ends have succeeded. So I would assume that Njoku is the play that I prefer within the given matchup and the prioritization of him as the primary offensive threat. So I'll take Njoku there this weekend and rest of season. Now, if we get into a scenario where they replace if they replace Jameis Winston with DTR, get me out of there. Give me Ferguson rest of the way. Peyton Whitaker sends in a question, says, Hey Pookie, replace Devontae Smith / flex for Kraft / Mark Andrews. What is this question? Replace Devontae Smith in the flex for Kraft or Mark Andrews. That's what I'm assuming you mean. Because you say /flex. I'm going to assume that's at the flex position. Am I replacing him for Tucker Kraft or Mark Andrews? I haven't even done my tight end research as of right now for this week. So I couldn't even tell you. Let me think about this. They play against Cleveland. Mark Andrews is more of a touchdown dependent. Tucker Kraft is also touchdown dependent. Do I take those two over Devontae Smith against that Mike Hilton matchup? I'll probably play Tucker Kraft there. If it's me, I legitimately would play Tucker Kraft there. Thank you. EA sends in a question. Let me go ahead and go to the live chat and see that. EA, and then what else? Jorge Perez had also sent in a question with nothing attached. Let me go see if I can find that as well. Jorge Perez. Again, for those of you who are joining us this wonderful Wednesday night, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. I appreciate you guys supporting the channel with your presence. If you guys haven't yet already, do me a favor, click the like button down below. It is greatly appreciated, and it certainly goes a long way in terms of supporting the channel. Thank you. All right, so let's see here. In regards to the questions that came in from EA, let's see if we can find that question in the live chat. Control F, EA. With the name EA, it makes it very difficult to find your name in the live chat because the Control F function is going to pick up every other word that has EA in it. And I don't see your name in the live chat. If you could do me a favor, type in the chat, it'd be greatly appreciated. I'm going to look for Jorge Perez now. Jorge Perez says, also current. Okay, so Jorge, I don't know what your prior question was, but I only see one comment in the current live chat, which says, also currently have the 49ers defense and Lions are available. Should I start the 49ers or try to pick them up? Bench is Chase Brown, Hawkinson, Love, McMillan, Tracy, and Puka. If you're okay. Okay, so first and foremost, let's talk about this defensive question. If you're going to start the 49ers every week for the rest of the season, then yes, you'd keep them and you don't move them. But if you're willing to drop them in order to pick up the Lions and then stream every week henceforth, then you'd make that, swap. But that's very much so kind of your prerogative on how you want to kind of approach your defense rest of the season there. Okay, we'll wait until EA types in the live chat. Until then, we're going to go ahead and continue on. We had JS who sent in a question and said, full PPR, 10-team league, I'm 3-4. We have Darnold, Caleb, Henry, Achane, Tracy, Bigsby, Madison, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Pickens, Waddle, Douglas, Laporta, Kraft. Who to start and who do I trade? Okay. Going into this week, who am I starting? I'm playing Caleb Williams at quarterback there. I'm playing Henry. I'm playing Achane. At wide receiver, I am playing CeeDee Lamb, and I'm following that with Justin Jefferson. At flex, assuming you have only one flex spot, that's George Pickens. If you have a second flex spot, by any chance, it will be Jalen Waddle. Then I am playing Tucker Kraft at tight end. Now, as to what I do with your trades potentially, I am only trading players away. Like, I would be willing to trade away an Alexander Madison, Tank Bigsby, Tyrone Tracy. I'd like to keep Tracy out of the group, though, because I do believe that he is the kind of best in line to have that full backfield to himself. I'd be willing to move like Bigsby and Madison. I'd also be willing to move Laporta, but you'd have to wait for them to have really big weeks and then ship them afterward. Bigsby, again, coming off a great week, could end up shipping him, but that has to be somebody that's interested. Otherwise, you keep until they have a bigger week, or specifically until Laporta has a bigger week, and then you can maybe ship him off in exchange for something. Maybe you send away like a Bigsby, Madison plus a Laporta for a running back of some sort. Outside of that, I mean, really, there's no variable change that is required based on how this team is constructed, and it's constructed very well. Chris Straight sends in a question, says, Ingram over Harrison Jr. in a full PPR this weekend, tight end premium. Yeah, I would. Absolutely. Give me Evan Ingram this weekend. Thank you. Ibrahim says, I'm 6-1. We have Evans comes back, a cheat code trying to get 1K, question mark. Thoughts on the squad? Hurts, Brees, Bijan, Nico, Evans, Ingram, JT, Brian Robinson, bench. I mean, look, once Mike Evans returns, without Chris Godwin in the lineup, he's going to get every single target, or the vast majority of them. Now, as to whether or not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in the playoff hunt, again, yes, he will have the personal goal of trying to get 11 consecutive 1,000-yard receiving seasons. Time will tell, of course. But as for the current situation, as for my thoughts on the squad, Jalen Hurts, Brees Hall, Bijan Robinson, Nico Evans, JT, Brian Robinson, Chase Brown, Dell Waddle, Evan Ingram. I mean, that's a solid squad across the board. You just need to get them healthy. And once they're healthy, again, by that time, you'll have a winning record and you'll be taking over the league. Or, I mean, as long as, I think at this point you are already taking over the league, you'll just continue to reign supreme. Basil Abdullah says, my bad. PPR, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. I'm already starting Reek. Okay, so let me go back up to that question, Abdullah, and let me just go ahead and re-reference what exactly I was suggesting here. I think I answered it in a 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, and 1 flex situation, but maybe if I didn't, I'll go ahead and I'll answer it one more time. So let's go ahead, Control F, Abdullah. Or it's not even Abdullah, it's Abdallah. Apologies, I have been butchering that. Abdallah, so this is a PPR, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league. Oh, it's PPR. Got it. So of those available players, got it. So Reed, Cup, Mason, Hunt, Kenneth Walker in a full PPR in this circumstance. Okay. The way that I kind of order these guys in a full PPR, I'm playing Mason number 1 still. Reed at that point will become number 2. And then I'm going probably Hunt, Kenneth Walker 3, 4, and Cup is at 5. That's the way that I go about it still. Thank you. All right, appreciate it. Moving on to a question. Okay, let's see if EA ended up typing in the live chat. Hopefully. Control F, EA. EA, anybody, anything? I don't see EA in the chat. Nothing yet. Okay. So we'll just keep it patient and we'll keep it moving. Let me go ahead. Let me see some stuff here. Okay. Let me see here. What do we have? Okay. That's very well. Okay, cool. Just caught up on everything. Just wanted to make sure everything was good to go. I do see that we have a question from Shahir who sent something in, but there was nothing attached to it. Let me see if Shahir maybe typed in the chat. Shahir, if you could do me a favor and type in the live chat, that'd be greatly appreciated as to what your question was intended to be that was not attached to the super chat. Thank you, Shahir. Appreciate it. All right, until then, we will continue on with Roy Shaver, who says, if JT is out, do I start Najee Harris, Rico Dowdle, or Tyler Goodson? Go Rams. I'd play Najee Harris over everybody by a significant margin. It's not even close. Thank you. Robert Jameson says, why can't I win my underdog bets? Because it's rigged. No, I'm just kidding. As of right now, I'd say, listen, it's purely just a matter of like, the more legs you have, the more, risk you are implying. Additionally, I would say, honestly, just follow my bets, but at a low, actually, it's not going to work like that. I bet so high that it overcompensates. I don't know. At this point, if I'm going to make a legitimate suggestion, from here on out, just do first quarter yardage. First quarter receiving yards has hit for me more often than anything else this season. And that is what I am continuing to key in on. I don't know as of right now if they currently have that live for tomorrow's game. Let me see here. 1QREC. First quarter receiving yards. Do they have any for the NFL so far? Let me see here. Yeah, like first quarter receiving yards, like Justin Jefferson, 17.5. Like I'm going to have to do some research on that. But if Cooper Kupp has first quarter receiving yards, whatever that number is, I'm taking it tomorrow. It's at 13.5. I'm taking that number. Like those are the ones that I want to go after because those are the ones that typically are more favorable for us. Because at least the play gets done by the end of the first quarter. I don't even have to watch the rest of the game at that point. Pipe Down sends in a question, says start Dak or May. Drop one for waiver quarterback. Yeah, I mean, I'm dropping May and I'm picking up a waiver quarterback. Give me Tua, A-Rod, Wilson. Yeah, give me Tua. Yeah, because at that point, you can just continue to roster him and start him every week henceforth. And additionally, on top of that, has already been past his bye week. Dominique sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, I need 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. We have Kyren Williams, auto start. James Cook, great. Kareem Hunt, auto start. Josh Jacobs, okay, very well. DeAndre Swift, very well. Devontae Adams, Malik Neighbors, Tyreek Hill. Okay, so Kyren Williams and Kareem Hunt are your starting running backs. Neighbors and Tyreek Hill are your starting wide receivers. And as for your flex position, as for this week, I think I'm probably leaning in the direction of either going Josh Jacobs or DeAndre Swift in a full PPR. Looking at the Jacksonville matchup in comparison to the Washington Commanders matchup, I think I legitimately, in a full PPR, I'm going to play DeAndre Swift just because of the PPR factor of the receptions. I know that Josh Jacobs got him to like 5 catches last week. That's not as variably common in that circumstance, but it's either between one of those two. So it's Kyren Hunt. I almost said another word. Kyren Hunt, Neighbors, Tyreek Hill, and probably Swift or Jacobs. I'm going to lean towards Swift as of right now. Luke C sends in a question, says PPR. I've wide receivers DK. More like I have. Either way. I have wide receivers DK, Amari Cooper, Ricky Pearsall, Ladd McConkey, Devontae Smith. Kincaid is my tight end. Trade Devontae Smith for McBride. Please rank rest of season tight ends. Goddard, Ertz, Jonnu. What does that say? J Sand? As in Jontavion Sanders, okay? Jontavion Sanders and Kate Otten. Okay, so this is the way that I see it. Across the board, if Goddard's healthy, he's number 1. Then at that point, the number 2 would be Kate Otten. Number 3 would be most likely John New. Number 4 would be John Tavion Sanders. And number 5 would be Zach Ertz. That's the way that I'd rank that rest of the season. Now, am I trading away Devontae Smith for McBride in this circumstance? Probably not. No. I don't think McBride has done enough to be able to designate that as a potential option. Thank you. Jesus Chavez says Hill/Puka for Debo/McCaffrey, have T. Higgins and Devontae Smith in a full PPR. I would probably say no to this because the way that I see it, Tyreek Hill's 20 points per game, like guaranteed. Puka Nacua just got limited practice earlier today, has activated his 21-day window. If you were to tell me which of the two pairings I'd rather have the Hill and Puka side rest of the season. If you're in need of a running back and you're willing to wait multiple weeks and have the record to be able to compensate for the absence of Debo and McCaffrey missing multiple weeks, if Debo's to miss with pneumonia, McCaffrey's not returning until at very least week 10, 11. If you can wait for that, then sure. But otherwise, I'm keeping the Hill and Puka side. That's the preferred. Hassan sends in a question, says full PPR JSN and Kareem Hunt for Amari Cooper and Javonte Williams. Yes, I'll take Amari Cooper, Javonte Williams very happily. Thank you. Easy E says, you demand PPR rest of the season. Rank Allen, Tolbert, Jennings, and Tracy. Okay, so if we're ranking these wide receivers in a full PPR rest of the season, actually, those are not even just wide receivers. Allen is Keenan Allen, Tolbert is Jalen, okay, but you have Tyrone Tracy also in the mix. So as of right now, if Tyrone Tracy is going to be the starting running back of that offense rest of the way, he's the number 1 most valuable prospect of the group. Then at that point, if Jawan Jennings is healthy and is going to be in the lineup sooner rather than later, Jawan Jennings is number 2, Keenan Allen's number 3, and Jalen Tolbert's number 4. Thank you. Ben says Pickens and Olave for Debo. If your team, technically, if your team can survive in the absence of Debo for the next couple weeks, theoretically, and you have enough wide receiver depth to be able to compensate for that and for the rest of the season have a solidified lineup where Debo is involved, I would say I'm okay with it. But if that is not the case, if you are at a losing record currently, Debo's going to miss and you're going to potentially even stack another loss on top of that, and you're going to lose out on the depth of Pickens and Olave, who, again, Pickens with Russell Wilson could very easily be a top 15 wide receiver rest season. Olave with Carback could also be the same. So really, you're just sending away potentially 2 top 15 to 16, maybe top 20 wide receivers for 1. It's very much so dependent on what kind of depth, what kind of, maybe it's an 8-team league, 10-team, 12-team league. That's all very much so dependent on what the rest of your kind of team's context consists of. In a bubble, I'd say no. With more context, I could be convinced to say yes. Grant sends in a question, says PPR. I got sorry, that's not Aaron Jones. I have AJ Brown, London, Mason as locked in starts. Beautiful. I need a flex in an RB2 out of Scary Terry, Waddle, Jaden Reed, James Conner, Jonathan Taylor, and Kamara. Okay. So as of right now in a PPR, the flex is Jaden Reed and the running back 2 is James Conner. That's the way that I'd go about it in this overall system. Until I get further word on the injuries of Alvin Kamara and Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to keep them on the sidelines. And Scary Terry, I do not like the matchup without Jaden Daniels against Jalen Johnson. Thank you. Peyton Whitaker sends in a follow-up, says also, said bye to Travis Kelce, pickup, 3 tight end limit. We have Pitts, Kraft, and Mark Andrews. Also offered Marvin. Okay, so you have Pitts, Kraft, and Mark Andrews. Good. That sounds good to me. Also offered Marvin Harrison. I mean, if you're picking up one of those 3 options, I mean, at this point, I'll take any of them. All of them are producing relatively well as of right now and should consistently continue, hopefully. Also offered Marvin Harrison, Dak, Devontae Smith, and Mostert for Montgomery, Neighbors, and Achane. Yeah, I'll take the Montgomery, Neighbors, Achane side immediately if you're able to get that. But if we're talking about which potential tight end to pick up between Pitts, Kraft, and Mark Andrews, really, I couldn't even object it. Like, all right, so Mark Andrews is more like Mark Andrews, Tucker Kraft, touchdown dependent. Pitts can live without touchdowns. Once Pitts potentially gets touchdowns, the overall target share and the overall yardage he's able to accumulate is really valuable. So the thing is, Pitts, though, doesn't get very much, red zone upside or opportunity in comparison to the other two. So it's a matter of, like, if you're playing in a full PPR and you're okay with the yardage and the kind of consistency there, you'd go with Pitts. If you're playing in a half PPR standard, you go with probably Mark Andrews or Kraft, mainly because you're just kind of have to get a touchdown. Otherwise, the week doesn't matter anyway. National Champ Rush says, I'm currently 6-1 in first place. I have JD, okay, J Jets. I have Metcalf. I have Henry, Mixon, Ferguson, Oranjoku, Scary Terry at the flex. Don't really have that much depth besides the handcuffs. Should I trade JJ or something for 2 players? No, I think you keep it as is. Unless there's an injury that really impacts your team to where you cannot function any longer, I would not look to a trade. I think this is a team that I want to keep for the rest of season on roster to take you to the championship. Because again, they've done it so far. 6-1 is no joke. TJ9 Anthony says, Zay, Kelsey, Bigsby, full PPR, 100-point bonus. 100-yard point bonus? Is that what you mean? Anyway, so between those 3, Bigsby does not get a start in a full PPR. So it's between Zay Flowers and Kelsey, which at this current status, I probably lean in the direction of, yikes, I don't like either of the 2. Zay Flowers dealing with an ankle. I probably play Kelsey this week. Rogo sends in a question, says, if I drop CJ and Baker on the waiver wire, there's Sam Darnold, Nix, there's Gino, there's Tua, there's Matt, there's Russ. I mean, look, at this point, I'm not dropping CJ. I'm more in line of like dropping Baker, but you might want to give it a week. Like you can start CJ Stroud this week until you can get somebody that's significant. I want like a Jordan Love, right? But I don't want to have to give away an arm and a leg for it. But I'm okay with keeping CJ because they play against the Colts, seeing what Baker is able to accomplish. If Baker doesn't make any sort of noise this week or isn't able to sustain with the loss of those wide receivers fantasy-wise, then you can ship him next week for any of these options that are available. Thank you. Daniel sends in a question, says, Purdy and Wando Robinson for Deontay Johnson. Hope he gets traded. You can. I mean, again, Purdy, I don't even know if he starts for your team. Wando Robinson, eventually we will see Andy Dalton back, and at that point, I'm okay with it. So yeah, if you want to trade that, I don't have an issue with it. But understand that, again, the likelihood of Deontay Johnson getting traded may not be very high, especially if the organization wants to keep him and wants to give him an extension, Thank you. All right, let's go back to the live chat. Let's see if EA had typed in anything as of recent. All right. Okay, we see Easy Power, which is not EA, but it's close. EA, no EA. Okay, so EA's gone. All right, so we took care of that. I think Jorge Perez had a follow-up, maybe? Let me see. Let me just confirm this. Jorge Perez did have a follow-up. Let me go back to the live chat and see if Jorge ended up typing it in. Jorge Perez says, question was, full PPR wide receivers are Devontae, Mooney, Dobbs. I dropped Bengals to pick up McMillan. Should I keep starters as is or put in McMillan? No, keep starters as is. They are the best of the options available. Thank you, Jorge. I appreciate it, my man. Have a good one. Moving on to the next question here. We had one that came in from Lou, who says, in a full PPR, start Murray rest of season. I've been starting Mayfield, Cousins, Goff, and Darnold on... Okay, sorry. I've been starting Mayfield. Cousins, Goff, and Darnold are on the waivers. If it's my choice, legitimately, I would like to pick up Goff immediately. And also dropped Pickens 2 weeks ago, FML. Yeah, that is a big woof. But as of right now, if I was in your position, I'd legitimately drop Baker Mayfield and just auto pick up Jared Goff. He has played incredibly well as of late, and he's not stopping anytime soon. Good luck sends in a question, says, my chat is above. Watch the video, says, I watch every video every season. Thank you very much. Good luck. I appreciate that. For some reason, the words got stuck together, so I was like, what the heck does that say? All right, good luck says, hey, Andrew. My opponent is 7-0 in a full PPR. One flex, locked in Amon-Ra, Mooney, Waddle, Gibbs. Okay, very well. Who do I start at quarterback, Goff or Burrow? Really good question. As of right now, I'm leaning towards probably if it's... Goff has played so well. If it's me, I probably play... wow. Yeah, I probably play Goff there. As for the next question, Chase Brown or Nick Chubb? Chase Brown, clear and away. Next question, TJ Hawkinson, Jake Ferguson, or Cade Otton. Considering I haven't heard a lot of momentum in regards to Hawkinson, I'm going to lean towards the other two options. Between Cade Otton and Jake Ferguson, I'm going to lean towards playing Cade Otton this upcoming week. So to answer your questions, once again, from the top to the bottom, it's Goff, it's Chase Brown, and it's Otton. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Michael, who says, trade Devontae Adams for James Cook. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you have Garrett Wilson, you don't want to hold them both. I think James Cook is a great haul in exchange. Terp sends in a question, says, hi, Drew. How do we feel about Arizona plus 3.5 spread? I have no clue. let me see here. I don't really play spreads because again, it's not legal in my state. So let's see here. NFL Week 8 spreads. So again, I don't even know. Like, I don't do any research on the matter because again, it's not something that I particularly kind of participate in. But I don't mind giving it a look just as of right now. So Arizona, as of right now, they are 3.5-point underdogs in Miami. I mean, you know, the issue is, as of right now, let me confirm this. Cardinals. So the Cardinals offense as of this season, they have scored. Okay, so if we go back to week 1, week 1 was great, 28 points. Then against the Rams was fantastic the week after. Then since then, they've scored 13 against Detroit, 14 against the Washington Commanders, 24 versus the 49ers, 13 against the Packers, and 17 against the Cardinals. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of those games are 17 or fewer points. I don't see that the Miami Dolphins, outside of the running matchup, being a favorable one for them. So I would say that there's a chance, or a pretty good chance, that in Miami, the Dolphins are probably able to clear that. Like, the fact that they're 3.5-point favorites, I think that the Miami Dolphins could probably beat them by 4. Putting it out there. But again, I don't play spreads, so what the fuck do I know, right? All right, continuing on. Thank you. Let's see here. We have a question from Brandon Frederick, who says, my starting running backs are Jalen Warren and Tank Bigsby. Okay, you are really living with the with some risk this weekend. Wideouts are Amon-Ra, DK Metcalf, Waddle, and Devontae Smith. Got offered James Conner for Smith and Tank, except, yeah, I think you have to. Considering your current circumstance, I think you're kind of forced to do so. Make sure you cuff Conner with Trey Benson if you're able to off the waiver. Thank you. GM sends in a question, says, if Hawkinson is active, my other options are, says Hawkinson, if active, my other options are Myers, Pittman, and Fant. Yeah, considering I don't know if Myers plays, and on top of it playing against Kansas City, Pittman has Richardson at quarterback, not interested. And then you have Fant, which again could be a better option in the absence of DK, considering how he's played. I think I still play Hawkinson there. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Antonio Marquez sends in a question. Says, trade Tracy for JMO in a full PPR 12-man league. My other running backs are Barkley, Mixon, Gibbs, and Bigsby. Week 12 bye is going to wreck me. Wide receivers in first place or work waivers. So JMO is going to miss the next 2 weeks with a suspension. I know he's going to try to appeal that, but I think he'll probably just get the ban hammer and get two suspended games. If you're okay just kind of building up for that, that's fine. Honestly, if I was in your position, maybe just hear me out. If you're looking to try to let me actually look this up really quickly before I just talk out of my ass. So my immediate thought, as soon as you said week 12, was at that point, I'd kind of want to go after Mike Evans instead and just hope that he comes back in week 12. But I don't know what your record is. You said you're in first place. So why not just go after Mike Evans, get him, throw him on your IR, then hit the waiver for another wide receiver. Have Mike Evans come back in week 12, which is after their bye, which is exactly when their head coach said that he would return. And then you have Mike Evans alongside of, whatever wide receivers you got on roster, which again should be able to help you. Try to see if that's a possibility before continuing on the JMO path, which I don't love, but again, I'd be willing to do so considering you may be in need of wide receiver. Brian Colorado sends in a question, says, I'm in a Superflex full PPR. I'm currently 5-2. We have Collins and Christian McCaffrey manager is 2-5. Is offering Jacobs and Devontae Smith too much for Collins? If you're going to offer Jacobs and Devontae Smith, he better be giving you back Collins and Christian McCaffrey. Legitimately, I'm not even joking. The reason why is because there's so much implicated risk with injured players that if I'm going to go and give you 2 starters out of my lineup and I'm going to have to sit here and wait for Collins and McCaffrey to not only get healthy, but then avoid, getting injured again by re-aggravating said injury, then, the risk has to be implied and has to continue to give me more potential for upside, which includes Christian McCaffrey. So unless they give you both, I think it's too much. Let's see here. I have DK, I have Chase, I have Kirk, I have Keon, I have Kyron, Montgomery, Rico, and Warren. Yeah, look, at this point, you have, so when you say you have Kirk and Keon Coleman, those are not starting wide receivers. You have DK and Chase, done. You have Kyron and you have Montgomery. Rico and Warren, they're not starters unless you are in a pinch, right? So in these scenarios, You've got 4 starters that can work every week. If you send away Jacobs and Devontae Smith, you can survive until you see the return of Collins and McCaffrey. But again, unless you get them both, I'm not interested. I'd rather keep Jacobs and Devontae Smith the rest of the season. Jesse G sends in a question, says JSN, Christian Watson, Gabe Davis, half PPR. As of right now, I'm probably leaning towards JSN in the absence of Christian Watson. DK Metcalf. If DK Metcalf is going to play this weekend, I will then at that point play Christian Watson against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then also says I need one Goff or Wilson. I'm going to play Goff. I'll drop Wilson because at this point he's going to go on bye next week anyway, so you might not need to have that second quarterback, and Goff's already passed his bye. Evan Sellis sends in a question. It says, in a PPR wide receiver crisis, we need 2 wide receiver spots filled. We have Keenan Allen, Tutu Atwell, Cedric Tillman, we have Juwan Jennings, drop Jacoby Myers or someone else to pick up Ricky Pearsall. Etienne is in the flex, other wide receivers, or one of these other wide receivers. Okay, Etienne, we don't even know if he plays. Juwan Jennings, we don't even know if he plays. Jacoby Myers, we don't even know if he plays. So, Evan, a little bit of a premature question because I don't even know the context of their status. But let's say, for example, everyone's healthy, just for right now. And if it changes, we'll change it. But if everyone's healthy, your 2 wide receiver spots are going to be filled with Juwan Jennings, and most likely playing, if I had to designate one, I probably play Juwan Jennings and I probably play Tutu Atwell, wide receiver. And then, no, actually, if Jacoby, well, no, I'm not going to be interested in that. So actually, scratch it. Let me rewind a little bit. As of right now, Evan, what I would do immediately is I would drop Tutu Atwell and I pick up Ricky Pearsall. Then additionally, I'm going to start Juwan Jennings and Keenan Allen, or Juwan Jennings and Pearsall if Debo is going to be out this weekend. Thank you. Duro Modi sends in a question, says, Drew, what's good? Everything's good. Would you trade Kyren Williams for Swift and Hopkins? Kyren Williams for Swift and Hopkins, or Montgomery and Hopkins? Nope, not interested. I'd rather keep Kyren rest of the way. I'd stay put. Kyren's just a stud. Don't really have any questions about that. Thank you. PM Chunk sends in a question, says, I'm currently 7-0. I lost Godwin, okay? Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Breece Hall, Gibbs, Brian Robinson, Dowdle, Cup, Debo, BTJ, Mooney, Kincaid. Trade away Brian Robinson for T. Higgins? I'm clean with that. Yeah, in a PPR, I'd be very happy with that overall move. I think you have enough running back depth to be able to compensate for that for the future. I think your wide receiver depth is solid, but I think if you want to bring in another potential option in that circumstance, I don't have an issue with it as of right now. Again, understand that you only make this trade if you can start 3 wide receivers and 1 flex every week, because otherwise Cup, Debo, and BTJ are starters every week rest of the season once they're healthy, right? So really, you wouldn't actually start T. Higgins, or you would have a real tough time picking between T. Higgins, Debo, and BTJ every week once they're all healthy, and that's just going to cause a headache for you. But if it's a 3 wide receiver league with an additional flex, or potentially 2 wide receiver, 2 flex in a PPR, yeah, I'll take the deal. Otherwise, if it's not one of these 2 wide receiver, or if it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, I don't think the trade is needed, because I think I'd rather just keep the running back depth just in case of an injury or upcoming bye week, etc. in that circumstance. Okay, Shahir, let's get to your question right now. Let's hopefully see if you typed it in, Shahir. Says, forgot my answer. Yeah, I got it. Let's see here. Shahir, do me a favor. So I don't know if you typed the question in the chat, but I don't see anything from you outside of it saying, forgot to answer my super chat. That's the only thing I see. So this is the glitch that we had yesterday. I don't want you to copy paste your question. I want you to take the question that you were going to send in and rephrase it. I don't care if it's broken English, rephrase the whole question, because for some reason, the way that YouTube works, if you type in the same question multiple times, for me, you disappear. You get shadow banned and it turns you off and I cannot see your question. So in this scenario, rephrase your question and send it in, because I haven't seen a single fantasy related question from you in the live chat recently. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Logan Land says, start Hopkins, Waddle, or Dell as my wide receiver 2. Earlier today, we dropped the wide receiver rankings at a top 41 capacity. I do have Waddle ranked above the 3, or the total of those 3 options. Thank you. Good Luck says they probably would get 2 pick sixes. Who are we talking about? The Vikings defense or the Chiefs defense? Either of those 2, John S., are really strong. As to which one I prefer, look, the fact of the matter is I'm going to start the Vikings defense every week for the remainder of the season, blindly, against any matchup. It does not matter. They will deliver. So if that means you can drop the Chiefs defense and no one's going to use it against you, or potentially in a circumstance in which you can drop them and pick up somebody else that'll give you more value going forward, that could be the play. But again, the Vikings have to start for you every game rest of the season. They are that legit. Evan Salas says, drop Tutu for Ricky, even with Cup trade rumors. I don't actually think those will come to fruition. I might be a in denial Rams fan, but if Cup was going to be traded, he would not be playing in this game. He wouldn't. Why? If there was a potential of him being traded, they would not throw him out there. Let me tell you why. Because if there was a potential in which the organization was like, we don't want Cup anymore, we want to actually ship him away, they'd say, we need to make sure he's healthy so he can pass the physical and get shipped out. So they actually wouldn't throw him out there. They would actually, like, you know how Devontae Adams does where he disappears for 2 weeks? He'd disappear for 2 weeks. So as of right now, again, you got to remember, like, maybe as a Rams fan, I'm in complete denial. I might be. But this guy quite literally on his back won us a Super Bowl. I don't know. Maybe you guys from different organizations, fans of different organizations, when was the last time like an actual piece that was the reason you won the Super Bowl got traded 2 or 3 years after the fact for chump change? Because I don't remember. I don't know of any other instance that has occurred. Like, he is the face of our team. Like, I don't care about Matthew Stafford. Cup is the face of the organization. The beard is the face of the organization. So that's the way I see it. Terp says, hey, Andrew, I lost service driving over the Rockies. Did you get to my super chat? Yeah, I got to your super chat. So this is what I was referring to, Terp. So in your question, you asked about Arizona being 3.5-point underdogs. The way I went about it, because I did mention I don't really talk about spreads because I don't play any spreads because it's illegal in my state. In this overall situation, the Cardinals have scored 17 or fewer points in 4 of the last 5 games that they have played. My concern is that they probably will be in the same situation where they're only scoring maybe 17 points. And I truly do believe that Tua and this offense is going to unleash and just light them up. And I think that the Dolphins most likely are able to cover the 3.5 points. All right, let's see here. Took care of that. Shahir, where does your question go? Shahir says, question asked on Patreon. Asked as Akon. Oh, okay, cool. I mean, Shahir, you could have just sent it to me on Patreon, and I don't have to answer it live. I was going to get to it after the live stream anyway, but hey, I'll get to it right now. Let's do it. All right, so it says, hey, Andrew. So my current team is Allen, Jones, Kamara, Hunt, okay, very well, Chase, DK, Marvin Harrison, Laporta, and Jonnu at tight end. I know I should trade Hunt after this week at the latest. Any trade targets? Heard you say Pacheco, but the owner is unlikely to trade. You would be either trading Hunt to the Pacheco owner or vice versa. They would be sending you Pacheco. Now, if they're not interested at all, Kareem Hunt would only be going to a team that is willing to take a player that is going to disappear in 2 weeks. If there is no team that is willing to take him, because again, they know that Pacheco is returning sooner rather than later, then you can't actually move him. And you just have to continue to start him every week and just hope that even when Pacheco comes back, there's going to be some sort of split designation where Hunt continues to maintain some sort of value considering how well he has played, which again is always in the realm of possibility. So outside of that, when I look at your team, any trades that you could theoretically make, I want to keep Aaron Jones and Kamara. I want to keep those guys. Chase, DK, Marvin Harrison. Chase and DK are studs. Marvin Harrison is a to-be-determined kind of guy. Laporta with Laporta with Jonnu. Again, Laporta has been disappointing, but hopefully Jonnu can kind of figure it out in the return of a better quarterback. He's obviously been great the last 2 weeks for fantasy purposes. As for your next question, it says other spots on my bench consist of Quentin Johnston, Shakir, and Kirk. Also, any other moves I should make? I'm currently 4-2. You can't be 4-2. You can either be 4-3 or you can be 5-2 because there's been 7 weeks this season. So I'm going to assume you're 4-3. Either way, at this current circumstance, when I look at your team as a whole, I'm keeping your running backs, wide receivers, quarterback. Laporta, I'm going to wait on. I'm going to play the patience game with him, just like we should have done with Mark Andrews. Obviously, I've maybe we didn't overreact on it. Again, it was 5 bad weeks, but either way. When we look at it as a whole, I'm not really moving anything unless someone wants to take Hunt off of your hands. If someone wants to take Kareem Hunt and they want to give you some sort of running back depth in return, beautiful. Until then, I mean, you might be able to go out and trade Kareem Hunt for like a Tyrone Tracy, who is expected to be the starter for that team rest of the season. You could go out and trade him for, I mean, I'm looking at running backs. Like at this point, considering, again, I do anticipate him to disappear, the running backs that you do have to go after are like very low valued players. So don't expect big names here. Like Travis Etienne would be a name I throw out. Rico Dowdle would be another name that I throw out. So Dowdle, Travis Etienne, Tyrone Tracy, maybe Rashad White could be a potential opportunity. I doubt it though, because again, Rashad's going to be the starter the rest of the season. Alexander Madison could be an option. Those are the kind of names that you'd have to go after, which again is not pretty, but that's kind of the scenario you're in if you're trying to make a trade in which you're moving him, because he's really the only player that you can move in this circumstance. Bonk sends in a question, says, trade Tracy or Shakir. I own Cooper for Hopkins. If you need the running back depth, then you go ahead. Yeah, honestly, I'm going to assume that you probably are going to want to have that running back depth as an RB4, maybe RB3. Let's move Shakir. Let's get Hopkins in that scenario. Otherwise, if you don't need the running back depth, you're like, Andrew, I have Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, and Derrick Henry. I don't need it. Okay, then that's fine. Let's just go ahead and move the running back in that scenario. Okay, let's see here. Drew sends in a question, says he accepted my trade. I got Gibbs for Jacobs and Wilson, in my keeper league. I gave up a lot, but look, here's the thing. You gave up a lot theoretically, but in the long term of the potential, like, we don't know who's playing quarterback for Garrett Wilson in a couple years. We have no clue what that's going to look like. Jacobs, again, is an older running back. He is at the back end of his career. Gibbs is only just getting started. So in terms of the keeper league, the way that you're functioning as, Drew, where you get to keep 10 keepers every league or every year, I think it was the right, overall move to make in that scenario. Okay, guys, how long have we been here for? An hour 30. All right, that's pretty much it. That's where we're gonna wrap it. Onage says, I was going to take my buzz cut down to shave like yours, Andrew. My hairline is going the way of lesser holes of my head. Listen, yeah, that hairline is busted. I don't know why anybody keeps that. Listen, I lost my hairline many of years ago. I parted ways with this sucker at like 20. I think I was losing my hair like at 2016. So it was like 8 years ago. Okay. So I've been bald for a while. I've gotten used to it. It's the look now at this point. But if you're going to buzz it all the way down, listen, just rock the motherfucker. I mean, there's nothing really else to do. You just have to be confident with it, right? But yeah, there's just like it's the maintenance issue. You just got to keep buzzing it. You got to keep it clean, because otherwise it just becomes like just the back of your head is just hair and everything else is gone. It just becomes a disaster at that point. All right, guys. Like we typically like to do, hour and a half, and then I'm out. I appreciate y'all coming through. If I wasn't able to answer your question, hopefully by tomorrow night, I'll swing back around, answer your question directly or via proxy. Again, if you guys want my rankings every Sunday for the remainder of the season, checking out Underdog will get that accomplished by signing up today using code Andrew, making that first time deposit minimum of $10. You'll get that overall ranking sent to you from my email directly to yours. Or, of course, you can check out the Patreon. Unlimited questions answered, rankings every Thursday and Sunday. And, of course, you have my ear. You can ask me questions, and I'm trying to quickly answer them as fast as possible in order to keep you up to date and all that kind of jazz. So those links are down in the description if you're interested. Outside of that, I'm going to work on quarterback, tight end, kicker, and defensive rankings so that we're prepared for tomorrow. And also by tomorrow's episode for quarterback and tight end rankings, I will include overall pick 'em slip entry for Underdog. So keep that in mind. It will be, aligned within that. Thank you. Final question of the night. Jose Rodriguez says, trade one for a running back. Waddle, Higgins, or Wilson. If I was going to trade one for a running back, I'm shipping away Garrett Wilson. I'd rather have Waddle and Higgins rest the season. Thank you very much. We're cueing the music. We're playing the wonderful, incredible double helix. Have a great rest of your night, everyone. I'll see you. Peace. Okay, it seems as if Antonio Marquez had came in with a question. It says you missed my question. Antonio, I had actually answered your question. You may have missed it, but we'll go ahead and we'll track back and we'll answer it right now. Mr. Marquez, let's see. So Antonio Marquez had asked me, should I trade Tracy? And I talked about this for like, I want to say maybe 2-3 minutes. If you got hit with 2 or 3 minutes of ads, I apologize. It is just a random YouTube, algorithm system working. But luckily we're still live and I'm talking and we're here. So this is the post overall conversation. So you asked, should I trade Tracy for Jameson Williams? My running backs are Barkley, Mixon, Gibbs, and Bigsby. I'm worried about the Week 12 bye. My suggestion was that considering your circumstance of worrying about the Week 12 bye, I immediately suggested you should go after Mike Evans. And if you're not able to, potentially get Mike Evans in exchange for this overall trade, then I'm okay settling with JMO in this circumstance. Okay? So that was the original response to the question. Hopefully, you got it, you understand it, and we're good to go. Yes, this is the bonus ASMR mode of me being up in the grill of the microphone. It says, does the music, who does the music for your videos? It's sick. Yeah, it's fantastic. I've had it since the early seasons. Who does it? I have no clue. It was I literally got it off of the YouTube copyright-free library. It's incredible. What does it say? Dexter Brett says Deontay, Laporta, Pittman, flex. I'm not playing Laporta. I'm not playing. Okay, Dexter, you've got to. Dexter, that question is so disgusting that I don't even want to answer it, brother. You are in absolute shambles. I'm not playing Deontay. I know that for sure. So it's between Laporta and Pittman. Laporta has done nothing to designate that he deserves to be started, so I think I just play Pittman there. Young Money says, I'm back, LOL. Flex Mason, Achane, or BTJ. Young Money, listen, the stream's over. I don't know why you're coming in here last second. Flex Mason, Achane, BTJ. As of right now, I'm flexing Mason this week. Rexton says, real quick, Andrew, should I start Nix, Goff, or Williams this week? The rankings for quarterback will be out tomorrow. The rankings will be out tomorrow afternoon. I can probably tell you that Goff will be number 1, Caleb will be number 2, and Nix will be number 3 in that specific group. Metro Boomin says, Andrew, just got here real quick. Who do I drop for Hopkins, Algier, Ridley, or Downs? I'm dropping Josh Downs there. Thank you. CD Smitty says, pick up Ricky Pearsall or Cedric Tillman. Pick up Ricky Pearsall. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your night. That's all. Peace.